Hello, everyone, and welcome back to I'm Not the Book Expert, but She Is. This is Rachel, once again reminding you that this is part 3, although we originally only planned to have 2 parts. So if you have not listened to the first 2 episodes, go ahead and go back and listen to those, and then jump back into this episode because we are picking up right where we left off in the last episode, part 2. Here you go.
And this is when we finally get the prophecy from Clarice.
Mm-hmm.
Can we backtrack for a second?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Clarice is checking out Annabeth's wounds, right?
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
And Clarice is actually being really caring and really careful with her and makes the comment about how Clarice knows that Annabeth has broken ribs. And Percy asks her, "How do you know?" And she says, "Because I've broken some. Like, I know what that feels like because it's happened to me."
Mm-hmm.
And he's just kind of like, and then they continue on with the story. But that is my biggest I like Clarice in this moment for this book.
I think that is very valid.
It feels like a decent foreshadowing of Clarice's relationship with Selena.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
And then Tyson and Percy team up, and that's always fun.
yes, we love them. So we finally get the prophecy from Clarice, which is, "You shall sail the iron ship with warriors of bone. You shall find what you seek and make it your own. But despair for your life entombed within stone, and fail without friends to fly home alone." We've got the ship, we've got the iron ship with warriors of bone. Find what you seek and make it your own. They got the fleece. Despair for your life entombed within stone, inside Polyphemus's cave, obviously. And fail without friends. Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson show up to help Clarice to fly home alone.
Can we also just visit the fact that Clarice is all bluster? You never see her visibly afraid. But based on the prophecy, we have to assume that she was terrified in the cave.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Yeah. I am 100% backing up. Because even she is also still just a kid. She is older than Percy and Annabeth, but she is just a kid.
Who is about to be forced to marry a Cyclops.
No, thank you. Hard
Nope.
pass.
Nope.
Percy puts the pieces together really quickly, which I think is a testament to what we were saying earlier. Percy is more intelligent than he gives himself credit for.
100%.
But seriously, though, he always describes, like, he and Annabeth as a fighting team. She's the strategy. He's just kind of, he puts it into place. But so many of the monsters Percy fights, he doesn't defeat outrightly so much as outsmarts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even going back to the lightning thief in the waterbed palace,
Oh, yeah.
he doesn't fight Krusty or whatever you want to call him. He convinces him to get on the bed. He manages, I mean, I don't want to jump forward onto the Princess Andromeda, but he does something extremely intelligent there. He is not the one who is taunting Polyphemus as they ride away into the sunset.
Right.
If you're willing to go forward further into the books, which I will not write at this moment, he really is very good at thinking on his feet.
Mm-hmm.
He
Absolutely.
thinks of himself as stupid, which makes me so mad because he is so smart, and that idea has to come from other people.
Mm-hmm. That's what you said in The Lightning Thief, Rachel. You were saying, like, no one describes themselves as a troubled kid, which means Percy has been told that by other people. And he
100%.
has accepted that as fact about himself, when it is simply not true.
Mm-hmm.
And
Percy is
Percy
not.
is...
Oh, sorry, continue.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Percy is not academic.
Right.
We are doing ourselves a huge disservice if we associate academic with smart and say that they
Mm-hmm.
have to be linked.
Exactly. because Percy puts the pieces of the last part of the prophecy together really quick. He realizes we've only got enough cash for someone to take a flight back. I can't fly anyway. Clarice, you're the hero of this quest. This is your quest. You have to take the fleece back to camp so it is there in time to save it. And the rest of us will figure it out. We'll get back to camp on our own, but you have to do this yourself. That's what the last line means. Because someone could read that and think, oh, fly home alone. Fail without friends and fly home alone. Fail without friends could mean like you've lost your friends and you have failed your quest. And then you have to go home alone and face the consequences of failing your quest. That's what that prophecy line could mean. Percy realizes, no, it meant you would fail if you don't have your friends with you. And you will have to end the quest on your own. That doesn't mean I don't know. It just, I really like that Percy is the one who realizes this, and he says, by all rights, he has every right to be the hero here too. He has done just as much as Clarice has for this quest. He has endured just as much. He says, no, it's time for you to be the hero. You are the person who needs to complete this quest. I really appreciate that about him. And then, like, literal seconds after Clarice leaves, Luke shows up. Where was he this whole time? Was he just hiding?
He was making his way through Miami.
Making his way downtown.
This is the piping hot take. Luke intentionally waited because he doesn't actually want to destroy the world, but he has just been manipulated to this point, so he let Clarice go.
I think possibly good take. I think
it's terrible.
Revision.
Bad take.
No, I think it could be okay. Revision. Luke knows what's going to happen to that fleece if it gets back to Camp Half-Blood.
Oh, yeah.
I actually had a theory about that, too.
I think I think he genuinely was going to give the fleece back to them because he would not be able to function knowing that he killed Talia's tree.
I also think, so on page 237, they're talking about, like, yeah, we already sent the fleece away. Luke's eyes narrowed. You're lying. You couldn't have. His face reddened as a horrible possibility occurred to him. Clarice? And I think Luke is acting like he's genuinely surprised by the fact that they sent the fleece back with Clarice, but I think it's exactly what he wanted. I think he wanted them to take the fleece back to camp. I think he realized that he couldn't use the fleece to help revive Kronos. So instead, he's decided to use it to meet some other ends of his, which could explain why he waited, apparently, because he just shows up.
I mean, what happens with the fleece at the end of the book is always part of the plan.
Right.
I do wonder, I wouldn't go as far as Rachel's hot take, but I do wonder if Luke might have been getting cold feet about some other parts of the process. The fleece served no purpose except to speed up the process.
Right.
So letting it pass on was just giving himself a little more time, if that makes sense. It doesn't actually endanger his plan at all.
He doesn't think it endangers his plan at all.
Correct. That's a better way of putting it. But I think it is possible that it's a little bit of an act of procrastination.
I think that's fair.
I can get behind that. Luke and Percy finally get to have their one-on-one duel on the Princess Andromeda.
What I was personally referring to when I was talking about how Percy is smarter than we give him credit for is the scene with the iris message during his fight with Luke.
Yes.
He manages to set up an iris message to camp without anyone noticing.
Mhm.
First of all, the idea of doing it occurred to him, which I would never have just thought, oh, I could tell people what's going on. He then managed to pull it off, and here's my favorite part. He doesn't use this message to say, hi, we're off the coast of Miami and we could use some help right now, which would have been a great idea. He also could have used that message to be like, here's Kronos' plan as far as we know it, which he also does not do. His first thought is, I can clear Chiron's name.
Yes.
Right back to Percy having the big heart.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, it also works out so that he accomplishes those other two things,
Mm-hmm.
but his actual goal is just to help Chiron. He doesn't know that it's going to help him at all, even though he's facing almost certain death at the moment.
Yep.
Well, I think he does it because he thinks he is going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what is the point of telling other people to come if he's just going to die in the process anyway?
Mm-hmm. Just sort of a, what can I do with my last moments?
Yeah. Which is horrifying to think about when you're 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I have complicated feelings about Chiron, but I do really like that Percy clears his name.
Chiron is an interesting character.
Yes.
I feel like Chiron is written as somebody who has not lived thousands of years and who hasn't been a teacher for an extended period of time, but that is neither here nor there.
Indeed.
Excuse me for invoking a name which should not be invoked right now, but Chiron is the Dumbledore of bad communication.
That's fair.
I
That's
have no
fair.
idea, so I'll go with it.
Just kind of this attitude of, I know best, so I'm only going to parcel out a little bit of information at a time based on what I think you need.
That's fair. But Chiron does show up, and he and his party pony brethren
Yes.
save the day, causing mass chaos aboard the Princess Andromeda.
Mm-hmm.
And they whisk Percy, Annabeth, Grover, and Tyson away from the battle to safety.
And it's beautiful, except there's one thing I need to say here. This is especially
Yes.
for Maggie, but you probably noticed it on a reread.
Mm-hmm.
One of the overt, maybe not mistakes, but changes that Rick ran into as he was reading. We have this lovely section at the beginning of the fight on the Princess Andromeda when Agrius is bringing Luke's Pegasus to him.
Yes.
That is described as a pure black Pegasus mare.
Yes. I caught that.
It is not said overtly, but later we learn that, well, without getting ahead of ourselves, this Pegasus will make frequent reappearances, except his name will be Blackjack. And he will be very much not a mare.
I just think Percy made a mistake. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I mean,
Rick definitely made a mistake.
If anyone should understand horses,
it should be Percy.
It would be the son of Poseidon.
You right. This is also the same man who described Talia's eyes as being green in The Lightning Thief. They are not.
Yes. He also
in a dream, sorry.
That's okay. He also, during the Heroes of Olympus series, for one, changes one of the campers' names just slightly,
Mm-hmm.
but you know it's the same camper. And 2 completely changes the name of a minor side character who appears in Piper's story. But if you take into account that he started writing these books, like the first book is published in, what was it, 2005?
2005.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing this over the course of 15 years. I can't really blame him for forgetting some of the little details along the way.
Yeah.
It's just a thing that you learn to live with.
Mm-hmm. This is a really big tangent, but when people were criticizing some of the casting for the Percy Jackson show, which, first of all, y'all can leave. Fare thee well.
A different word came to my mind.
Yes. But a lot of people were saying, like, look, guys, you all are here, like, getting really bent out of shape about a person's eye color. Rick Riordan can't even write consistently. If he wants to make the characters look however he wants for the TV show, it's his power to do it. They're his characters.
Mm-hmm.
He can't keep the... He can't... Which was just kind of... It was amusing to me as sort of like a look. Y'all are acting like this is like holy scripture over here.
The ancient text.
The ancient texts from 2005. Which does feel pretty ancient, actually, not gonna lie.
Thanks.
I was 10. I was double digits.
Aww.
In 2005, let's see, I was 7.
Me too.
I was as old as Annabeth was when she went to Camp Half-Blood.
Aww.
I did not read these books until middle school, but I was alive.
Yeah. Anyway, Rick Riordan can't write consistently, but that's fine. We still love him.
Yeah.
We finally get back to camp. The fleece is put back on the tree. Camp is saved. All is well.
Except
we get the final chariot race.
And the shield.
And the shield! I want to talk about the shield. We finally find out what Tyson has been tinkering with during this whole book. And it's a shield for Percy.
Because all he wants to do is protect Percy.
And it's a shield that's decorated with pictures of their adventures together. Which is just... I just love it so much.
Yes. Agreed. And it's foreshadowed beautifully by the fight on the Princess Andromeda. Because Luke has a shield, but Percy doesn't. We've never seen him fight with a shield. Yet. Actually, that's not true. He definitely has in at least one capture the flag. But you know what I mean, like just out on regular quests.
He doesn't usually, it's not part of his regular equipment.
Nope.
Although his regular equipment is just riptide.
A sword. A pen, actually.
That's just peak 13-year-old boy logic, though.
He doesn't even regularly come with any armor. He's just like, all I need is my pen sword.
I mean, weren't you like ever 12 or 13 and you were like, I don't need a helmet to ride my bike?
I didn't even always get shoes.
I had to wear shoes, and I went to church with somebody who had a traumatic brain injury from still wearing a helmet while on a bike ride. So, no.
Okay, Rachel is the smart person here, apparently.
Also, when I was 12 and 13, I was 2 years into having diabetes. So, no.
Fair enough.
What I'm hearing
But you understand what I'm saying here, right?
Yes, because my students are stupid. Right? I witness that every day.
Fair enough.
Is this time for a Smith quote about male brains developing slower?
One of our professors was famous for always telling us, and bear in mind, we were all English majors, which, not to be sexist, but is a majority female major, especially at our school. Like, there were like maybe 4 male English majors during the time I was there.
I had none in my graduating year.
Dang.
You had
but
you.
I'm not male though.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant no. I checked out for a solid second there, and I'm sorry.
I was really confused.
So am I. What's happening?
Actually, I have an amendment.
Didn't you graduate with Noah? No, he wasn't an
No,
English major though.
and he was a year under me.
Oh.
I did not at the time. There were no men in my graduating class.
In your major.
Correct. Now there is somebody who I believe identifies as male.
I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Oh.
Anyway, so we were like, most of our classes were majority female, and we had this male professor who consistently went on rants about how the male brain is not fully developed until 25 or something like that.
I believe that is the number he would quote.
He would say that with fair regularity, and we were always just kind of like, this is an interesting thing for you to be telling us while we are talking about Shakespeare. But it was somehow always relevant as well.
Yes. The tangents always made sense. I was never upset about it.
No. Let's talk about the final chariot race. And Percy and Annabeth team up in the chariot together, which is what they wanted to do all along. And Tyson helps them prepare the chariot and gives them the weapons that they need to defend themselves and take out the other chariot rider. I love how competitive Percy and Annabeth are. I love how they match each other in their skills and their competitiveness and their just general chaoticness.
I love the reversal where we see Percy as the driver and Annabeth as the fighter in their little car.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because you would expect it to be the opposite, but Percy's the one who's good with the horses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they win the race.
They do.
They do.
Which, you know what, they deserved a good win.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just them who won.
Everyone is cheering, and the crowd is all yelling, and so page 268. Once the chariot stopped, our friends mobbed us. They started chanting our names, but Annabeth yelled over the noise. Hold up! Listen, it wasn't just us. The crowd didn't want to be quiet, but Annabeth made herself heard. We couldn't have done it without somebody else. We couldn't have won this race, or gotten the fleece, or saved Grover, or anything. We owe our lives to Tyson, Percy's brother, I said, loud enough for everybody to hear. Tyson, my baby brother. Tyson blushed. The crowd cheered. Annabeth planted a kiss on my cheek. The roaring got louder after that. The entire Athena cabin lifted me and Annabeth and Tyson onto their shoulders and carried us towards the winner's platform, where Chiron was waiting to bestow the laurel wreaths. Like that moment where Annabeth is cheering on Tyson and Percy acknowledges him as his brother in front of the whole camp is perfect full circle and really, really touching.
Mm-hmm.
And can we talk about how the Athena cabin just adopted Percy and Tyson in that moment?
Mm-hmm.
It's super small, but they don't have other cabin mates, so Athena cabin is just come to me.
Mm-hmm.
I will take you.
Yeah.
I like to think that the boys in the blue cabin over there are honorary members of the Athena cabin by the end of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, because they're not just hanging out in the dead, empty Poseidon cabin most of the time.
Right.
If they are anywhere, it's in the Athena cabin.
I would say Athena or in the Hermes cabin.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Also an option.
Yeah, because Percy does say he has friends in the Hermes cabin.
For sure.
I would not say that Percy is lacking in the friend department, though.
No.
Agreed. We get to the last chapter, when the fleece works its magic a little too well.
Pause.
Oh,
Tyson
wait.
has to go away.
Yes.
Tyson leaves.
Tyson goes to the Cyclops forges under the sea.
Yes. And we see Hermes again. I had a note about this one. Sorry. So we see Hermes again. And Hermes goes like full circle. He's talking to Percy, and Percy and Hermes are going back and forth. And to echo the quote from earlier that Hermes said, Hermes shrugged. Families are messy. Immortal families are eternally messy. Sometimes the best we can do is remind each other that we're related for better or worse and try to keep the maiming and killing to a minimum. I believe on page 258, but I also had it digitally. It didn't sound like much of a recipe for the perfect family. Then again, as I thought about my quest, I realized maybe Hermes was right. And then he goes and talks about feelings with Poseidon and Tyson and all of this stuff. But Hermes is once again, his main goal is just fighting for his family.
We like Hermes.
I'm a Hermes stan.
Rachel is the number one Hermes stan on this podcast.
Unapologetically.
I'll allow it.
And then Tyson leaves camp, which we're all emotional about,
Including Percy.
including Percy. Percy's like, I just got a brother and now he's leaving me. But Tyson knows that that's where he can be the most help because he's like, look, bad things are coming and I can go there and help prepare weapons to keep you safe. So we say goodbye to Tyson and things get quiet at camp for a little while until something happens in the middle of the night at Talia's pine tree. And Grover, it's Grover, right? Shows up in a panic. And Grover shows up in a panic. And he's like, something, like Annabeth was on duty and something happened. And Percy's like, Annabeth's in trouble. So he runs out to the tree. And Annabeth is kneeling next to somebody. So Annabeth is fine. And then we see there's someone that Percy has never met before, but he recognizes her anyway. And it's Talia.
The daughter of Zeus.
And the fleece has healed the tree enough that it doesn't need to rely on Talia's spirit to keep it protecting camp anymore. So Talia has been freed from being in a tree for the last 6 years. 6 years.
6 years.
Which throws a little bit of a wrench into things because Talia is another child of the big three. And we know that this prophecy that a child of the big three will either save or destroy Olympus. So Kronos can't rely on Percy to be the tool of his prophecy anymore. So he's decided to bring another pawn into the game in Talia. And that's where we end the Sea of Monsters. Let's talk about characters.
Characters. Do we want to acknowledge that we are recording 2 weeks later?
Maybe. I was just gonna play it straight, but it might be a good idea.
I think it would be a good idea because I think our tone is going to be very different from how we left off.
Mm-hmm.
You mean awake as opposed to sleep deprived? Wait,
Exactly.
idea. We acknowledge it now. If, as you're editing, you discover, no, we can fit these two together real seamlessly, you just cut that out.
Just cut it out.
Cut it out, Rachel.
So, yes, we are recording this like 2 weeks after our initial record date just because we were tired the last time and needed a break, and then the break ended up being 2 weeks.
It was 1 a.m.
Yeah, we were tired.
We were a bit sleepy.
Yeah.
I had to go to work.
I forgot about that.
We were fine.
Lydia is still employed, in case anyone is worried. 2 weeks later, she still has her job, so it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
A lot has happened in 2 weeks, but we'll talk about that later.
We're going to talk about that in another episode. Right now, we got to talk about the characters.
Yes,
we got to wrap up our discussion. So, we got to the end of the Sea of Monsters, the chariot race. Tyson gets his shield to Percy. Tyson goes to Poseidon's domain to go work in the forges with the other Cyclopes. And things seem like kind of normal at camp.
As normal as it can get.
as normal as it can get at camp. And then something happens, and we realized that, in the words of the book, the Golden Fleece has worked its magic a little too well, and it has healed the tree enough that Talia has been freed from her curse of being turned into a tree. So Talia's back, which makes Maggie very happy because she loves Talia. However, it also complicates things for the story, and that's where we end with the Sea of Monsters.
Yep.
Yep.
No disagreement there.
Mhm. So, but we'll talk more about sort of the implications of that when we get to the Titan's Curse, because that's really where those things kind of come into play. For now, let's talk about our main characters and where they've ended up at the end of this story.
Who do we want to start with?
I think we should start with Percy.
Our boy Percy.
Our boy Percy. So he's grown from feeling a little weird about. In our last episode, we kind of talked about how Percy feels about Tyson as his brother and sort of his complicated feelings about that. And those continue well into the second half of the book.
Indeed.
Yeah, he's feeling a little just not great about this, but he's also feeling very defensive of Tyson because Annabeth, for some reason, seems to really dislike him.
Right.
And as things happen, Tyson makes a really big sacrifice to save the others, and that is sort of the wake-up call for both Percy and Annabeth, but we'll talk about Annabeth more in a little bit. And fortunately, Tyson is okay. We get this happy reunion, and all is well. But I really like the turn that Percy has in his character at the very end when they're celebrating their win in the chariot race, and Percy outright says, like, Annabeth starts to say, like, you know, we couldn't have won, we had help, it wasn't just the two of us in the chariot. And Percy's like, yeah, Tyson, my baby brother, helped us out. And they bring Tyson into the celebration with them, which I felt like was really good and full circle for them.
Very redemptive.
We go from Percy not even being sure about sharing a cabin with Tyson at the beginning to at the end when he says bye to Tyson, he's like barely holding back tears.
Yep.
I just love Tyson so much.
He is one of the best characters.
Like, period. Straight up, period.
I didn't even specify in Percy Jackson.
Right.
In all of literature. This is sort of a tangent, but I was thinking about it and I just remembered it now. So the Sea of Monsters is very obviously takes a lot of its inspiration from the Odyssey, right?
Yes.
That is not really surprising to anybody.
I can pretend to be surprised if you want me to.
Give me a good gasp. She is aghast. Do you need a fainting couch to go with it? So in the Odyssey, you have Polyphemus, the Cyclops, who is not a good dude. We see him here. He's still not a good dude. But, like, in the Odyssey, he is very, like, the ultimate, like, outsider character, right? Like, he is very much the outsider compared to, like, Greeks and their way of life, especially Odysseus and his crew.
Despite the fact that they're on his land and eating his food in his cave.
Yes, correct. Despite the fact that Odysseus is basically a pirate, right?
Yes.
But I think it's interesting that this is the book where we see a Cyclops, being Tyson, being welcomed into a home and no longer being like... It kind of feels like full circle in a broader, almost like meta sense, I guess.
Yeah.
So I really like that too. And I like that we get to see that welcoming on Percy's part because it works for him personally as accepting Tyson, which is important. And then we also get that sort of broader full circle with the text that takes its inspiration from.
I think for the sake of the story, Tyson and Polyphemus really need each other, if this makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Where having the foil of Tyson shows us that Polyphemus isn't just acting like the way he has to. It's not just his nature. We get to
Right.
see him as a villain for what he's doing. Whereas the fact that we see Polyphemus as a villain helps us also see like Tyson is actually one of the heroes. He's one of the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And having that foil is probably a big part of what helps Percy and Annabeth see that too.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Because you said this a lot, Lydia, or we've come back to this point a couple of times. Like, the thing about Percy Jackson is that anyone can be a hero, and especially with this book, it's that the monsters aren't always who they seem to
Mm-hmm.
be. And even in the world of Percy Jackson, even a quote unquote monster can become a hero
Mm-hmm.
for Tyson. Tyson is not barred from the chance to be a hero because he is inhuman, as
Mm-hmm.
in, or non-human, I guess would be the better word.
It's definitely not the only time we see it in Percy Jackson, but this is the
Mm-hmm.
first time we hit it hard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I will say, as much as I love that scene at the end with the chariots, it has always struck me just, it's always felt just a tiny bit off to me, and this is why. I don't love the fact that they acknowledge Tyson for something he's done.
Mm.
Just because it feels a little Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer to me. Like, you lit the way, now we won't bully you anymore because we need you, you know?
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that's definitely not the reason that Percy and Annabeth accept him. The rest of the camp, I'm not so sure.
Minus my boy Beckendorf.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's not lump him in there.
Hashtag not all campers.
Mhm. But I think it'll take some more time for Tyson to be really accepted to the other members of the camp.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But he's on his way.
But I also think that because we do see him come back in later books. I don't think that's really a spoiler. Like, he does come
No.
back to camp. Um, I do think it's worth noting that there isn't really any, at least that Percy mentions, Tyson doesn't really get bullied by the other campers when he interacts with them in the future. So
Uh,
I do think we do get that. Am I missing something important?
no, I was just going to offer a counterpoint.
Oh, go ahead.
How stupid would you have to be to bully Percy Jackson's brother where Percy Jackson, the narrator, could see you?
That is a fair point, and I was going to get to that because I think part of it is just that everyone realized, oh no, Percy Jackson's going to beat the crap out of me if I so much as look at him wrong. I'd better not. Because that's who Percy is, right?
Uh-huh.
Percy will not defend himself ever, but he will absolutely be the first to throw hands if anyone treats his friends bad.
But just why he's my favorite character
Mm-hmm.
ever.
Yes.
Ugh.
So let's talk since we're talking about Tyson, let's talk about Annabeth and how that sort of changes. Because Annabeth has a similar but very different hurdle to overcome with,
Mhm.
especially in regards to her feelings towards Tyson.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And we learned that a Cyclops is the reason that they were late getting to Camp Half Blood, and she blames the Cyclops for Talia's death
Mhm.
because that's the reason that the other monsters were able to catch up with them. It was a traumatizing event for her as a child because she had to save her friends from a giant Cyclops at 7 years old, and she
Mhm.
managed it, but like, yikes. So, Annabeth has some baggage here.
Side note, just because I don't think we talked about this, Annabeth is extremely sharp at seeing through the mist more so than other characters, if you think about it.
Mhm.
For
because
sure.
she's the only one who saw even that Tyson was a Cyclops,
Mm-hmm.
which Percy, even after he knows, has trouble like noticing that Tyson has two eyes once they're outside of camp.
Mm-hmm.
Just something that I had never really thought of before, that Annabeth can just see that.
Yeah. I wonder if that's. I know there's nothing about camp that would change that, but I wonder if that is an effect of being a camper and having so much more training than most other demigods of her age. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
she has been more deeply ingrained in the mythological world than Percy has, for sure,
Mhm.
and many of the other campers, especially those who aren't year-rounders.
You also wonder if maybe it has something to do with that story that makes her hate Tyson so much at the beginning. If
Mm,
this is her biggest fear when it comes to mythological monsters, minus Arachne.
yeah, that's true.
I definitely think that's fair.
Something that I think we see happen somewhat regularly with Annabeth is that she tends to make somewhat she makes a lot of snap judgments, I feel like, not so much of situations, but of others.
Mhm.
Because we know that she is a little bit like in the Lightning Thief, she is a little bit like aggressive towards Percy because she's like, "You're a son of Poseidon, I should not like you."
Mm-hmm.
And she is a little bit like it's rough around the edges, I feel like is the best way to put it. And again, she does have a lot of baggage going on here, but putting that aside for a minute, I think it takes her a little while to like open up and get through that. And I think a similar thing happens with Tyson here, although more to an extreme than with Percy, because Tyson is in her mind a monster. So she's like, monsters are all the same.
Mhm.
And that is how I'm going to think about this.
Mm-hmm.
So her like to trust Tyson as a friend and as a hero is a pretty big deal, actually.
Mm-hmm. You wonder if almost it's kind of the reverse of what we were just saying with Percy, where Annabeth can see through the mist better because she's had more experience at camp, but it
Mm-hmm.
also makes her less able to see that monsters aren't always our definition of monsters because
Right.
she's just been sitting in camp learning how to fight. Whereas Percy has memories of like standing on the beach and looking down and seeing naiads and uh, just like seeing a hint of maybe a cyclops wandering around his school playground, and it
Mhm.
hasn't always meant danger.
It kind of goes back to our discussion about like Percy being the heart of their relationship and how
Mhm.
she's more of the analytical side, is like she can see the danger of it, but Percy's the one who sees the humanity of them.
Mhm. We also get in this book this sort of first start of the discussion about fatal flaws
Oh,
when it
that's
comes to both
right.
of them, but especially Annabeth, because Percy doesn't know what his is yet.
He's gonna find out soon enough,
Oh,
don't
yeah.
you worry.
I mean, we already have evidence of it, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't know officially yet because we get to see how much Annabeth cares about having things done right,
Mhm.
and
Mm-hmm.
more specifically, being in a situation where she can do things because she knows that she can do them right.
Mhm.
So you definitely see her struggling a little bit throughout the book with that fatal flaw. Like, even at the end, by the time they get to Luke on the Princess Andromeda, Annabeth has been sort of introduced to this idea that maybe Luke has a better way of doing things, and she has to fight against that thought. I can't remember
Mm-hmm.
if I know she'll be confronted with it more later. I don't think this book is one of the biggest ones when it comes to questioning Annabeth's loyalty, but it is sort of that first point.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm actually really glad you brought it up because Annabeth's loyalty is something I feel like we don't talk about very much. And not so much that her loyalty wavers in regards to other demigods. Like, she clearly cares about camp and she cares about the people at camp. That I don't think that's ever necessarily in question. But
Mhm.
I think where her loyalty lies is she struggles with trying to figure out who will defend camp the best. Who will defend the people I care about the best? Is it the gods or is it Luke and the Titans, basically? And I think she realizes that Luke has a pretty good argument against the gods, and she has seen firsthand how the gods have failed their children. And she thinks, if I had the power that Luke has, if I had the power that they could give me, I could do better. And she might not be wrong.
Potentially a hot take. I think if Luke was not paired up with the Titans, Percy and Annabeth would have joined his side.
So if Luke were
Just turning against the gods because he didn't want their parents in control anymore.
interesting.
Can I make a slight counterpoint to that?
Indeed.
I think it would be more fair if going against the gods wouldn't mean so much destruction for humanity and for the world, then yes. Because
I'm
I've always been on let me finish. I've always been on the train that Percy, especially Percy, because he's the narrator, so we're in his head the most.
yeah.
So I'm just going to go with him. He is very much on the side of humanity. And if he would be able to get rid of the gods without putting humanity in jeopardy, I think he would do it.
I think Percy would put humanity in jeopardy if it meant saving his mom and saving Annabeth and saving Grover.
That might be a next book discussion.
This is all very hypothetical. So I don't quite know how to weigh in on this because I feel like it really depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
That was just a tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, one more thing I want to say about Annabeth before we move on. Her opening up, I think I said this already, so if I did, Rachel, just, snip, snip.
Yeah, I know.
But the scene after the event with the sirens and everything, and Annabeth is telling Percy about, like, what happened there and things about Tyson and the Cyclopes and whatever. That's really, like, the first time she really opens up to him, which is kind of a big deal.
I think she's at a point where she's very emotionally vulnerable because of everything that has just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And she does trust Percy. He just saved her life.
Right.
And it's still just the sweetest moment in the book in my mind.
Yeah. I get a little emotional just thinking about it, to be honest. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
But I just wanted to add that as, like, another point of Annabeth really growing up and learning to better trust other people. And part of it is that emotional vulnerability of, like, she has just been through another trauma, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But her realizing that Percy really is someone that she can rely on is really important.
I think we are seeing her get slightly better at those snap decisions about people. I think she continues to make a couple of judgments of people throughout the rest of the series, which aren't always 100% accurate. I have one particular character in mind. But throughout this book, it just brings to mind when this might actually be at the end of The Lightning Thief, so forgive me if I'm calling us back too far. But when they're talking about Luke and his betrayal, she starts to say, I can't believe that he would do this, and then she stops herself and says, no, I can 100% believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And just her ability to turn on that point with someone that she has idolized for the last, I don't know, was it 5 years probably?
Mm-hmm. A long time.
Mm-hmm. And her quickness in seeing through Cersei earlier in the book,
Mm-hmm.
she's not really, she's very analytical, which doesn't always serve her well on an interpersonal level, but we do see her start to grow in that area. I
Mm-hmm.
think she will grow more, but we get to see the start.
For sure. For sure. So we've talked about Percy and Annabeth. We talked a little bit about Tyson. Do we have anything else to say about Tyson?
I love Tyson so much. And
Yes.
for a book that is focused on characters with disabilities, right? Because they all
Mm-hmm.
have ADHD and they all have dyslexia.
Mm-hmm.
We have a character that has the appearance of, or is coded in a way that seems disabled in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to see that variety.
Yeah. And he gets to be a hero too.
Yes.
Is it a hot take to say that I feel like Tyson is a relatively static character in this book?
I was actually just going to say that I feel like he does grow some, but he doesn't have the same character arc as like Percy and Annabeth do.
Yeah.
I think it would be more accurate to say that the circumstances allow him to shine in the way
Mm-hmm.
that he already was, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like, I don't think there are, I think he does become a little more confident, a little braver for sure.
Mm-hmm.
He is throughout the book sort of, or at least in the final scene, he has to deal with this sort of question of loyalty and almost nature, I guess, when Polyphemus accuses him of betraying his kind.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that he's entirely static, but I don't think he goes through a huge character arc either.
Yeah.
I would not give him as a static character example to my students, but I also would not give him as a dynamic character example to my
Mm-hmm.
students.
Mm-hmm.
He does more than just to kind of be there, but he doesn't have the same like clear thing. He doesn't have a clear flaw that needs to be overcome, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Because he's perfect.
Exactly. Grover only appears for like a little bit in this book, but do we have anything to say about him?
Grover deserved better.
Yeah.
Grover had some quick thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Grover is extremely intelligent. I will stand by that.
How did Grover know how to weave?
It's not exactly a difficult skill, and I feel like it's something they would teach at Camp Half-Blood.
Wait,
This is
it's not a difficult skill?
Basic weaving is not very difficult.
Have you done it?
Yes.
I'm so impressed. I dropped out of a weaving class at Messiah.
And point of clarification, weaving, just like any other craft, can get more advanced and more complex and be very difficult.
Absolutely.
At its basics, it's easy, is what I'm
Sure.
saying.
But you're right. But when I picture what Grover is doing, I picture like an ancient Greek, like women practice all their lives to be able to
Mhm.
weave these things.
I picture this.
Yeah, exactly. I was picturing that in my head.
Yeah.
I
I don't know where he got the loom, but I'm sure he acquired. I'm sure he found it somehow.
here's a little nugget of information. I'm imagining him doing card weaving, which does not require a loom and only requires tension. And you just have these little blocks with little holes in them, and you rotate the cards certain ways to flip the
Oh.
pieces, and then you just weave in between them. So you
Huh.
don't even need a loom.
Oh yeah. But he's
Interesting.
making like a veil.
Yes, and you can have as many cards as you need.
That's fair.
Regardless, we don't need to debate what Grover is doing or how he is doing it.
I
We're
think we need to
talking
call
about
Rick.
Grover. Why not?
I think we need to call up Rick Riordan and be like, Rick,
Uncle
my dude.
Rick.
Well, he's obviously Penelope in this scenario.
Yeah,
and if
yes.
you tell me that someone is behaving like Penelope, I picture an enormous loom.
I picture a loom.
Yes.
I'm just saying, again, at its basics, it's not super hard. And I think it is a skill they would teach at Camp Half-Blood.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Grover
If
has
you ever
the
need to,
experience.
if you ever, this is in the class. If you ever need to ward off suitors for 10 years, here's how you do it. Here's how they did it in the olden days.
You can't tell me they didn't offer that.
Okay, this is all I want to say. Page 72. He was standing in a dank cave lit only by torches. There was a cot in one corner and an old-fashioned loom in the other, a length of white cloth half woven on the frame.
There you go. So he is using a loom. My point still stands, though.
It is a skill he very likely may have learned at Camp Half-Blood.
Yes.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying I think it was a loom.
Mm-hmm. Well, now that question is no longer looming over our heads, I had to force that one out a little. I'm sorry.
You're ruining the thread of the conversation.
Oh my gosh.
We can weave it back in. Don't worry.
I am snipping this conversation. Where are we going next with this conversation?
Anyone got anything to say about Clarice?
Clarice got some character development. I still don't like her.
I like Clarice.
I'm going to be the Clarice apologist.
I wouldn't want to meet her, but I like her. Sort of how I feel about Kaz Brecker.
Okay, here's the question, though. This is very important. What would happen if Clarice and Kaz Brecker met? Who would
Clarice
win in a
would
fight?
Die. Aries has been sponsoring Kaz Brecker for years.
That's fair.
Rachel,
I
you
Rachel?
look like there's something you would like to say.
I might disagree. Because is it just Kaz and just Clarice?
Yes.
Or is it Kaz and the Crows?
It all comes down to this. Kaz has a gun.
Which is fair.
But canonically, there are guns at Camp Half-Blood.
And canonically, Clarice does not use them.
Okay,
True.
but also, are we doing, like, close combat situation?
Is this like a Hamilton, like, duel situation? Or
because
are we, like, hand-to-hand beating with a cane?
And at, like, a certain distance, guns are not as effective as, like, actually just beating somebody with a stick. Like...
Listen, this is how I picture it, okay? This is all I can tell you. They walk into a room. Clarice brandishes her spear, says, "You have dishonored me and my father. I challenge you to a fight." And Clarice pulls out the gun, and she dies. That's it.
Okay, sorry.
Kaz does not care about honor. Kaz will not pick a weapon that matches her weapon. This is just what happens.
Sounds like the setup of a joke. Clarice LaRue and Kaz Brecker walk into a bar.
Ugh.
Okay, here's the question, though.
Mm-hmm.
The Crows versus the Ares cabin for Capture the Flag.
Obviously, the Crows would win because they have Inej.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is
to be
exciting.
okay. They would never see her.
Okay, pick 6 characters from Camp Half-Blood.
Wait, we're getting real off topic here, guys.
No, but
this is
this is important, Lydia.
Unless you have to go, because otherwise we can start moving to wrap up. But
I never have anything more important to do than talk about Percy Jackson and Six of Crows.
Okay, 6 characters from Camp Half-Blood. Clarice has to be one of
them here. Okay, so obviously the foil for Inej is Annabeth with her invisibility cap.
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like foil for Kaz Brecker is not so much Clarice as possibly Nico. Thoughts?
I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
I'd be on board with that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Kaz and Nico. Hold on, I'm gonna write it on a post-it note, guys. All right.
I think the foil for Clarice is Nina.
Actually, I can see it.
Yes, I think so. I think it's Clarice versus Nina.
Or Matthias.
Or I was gonna say or Matthias. I think Jesper's match though is Percy.
Very possibly. Though I feel like if we weren't fighting, he and Wylan would really vibe.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Percy Jackson would absolutely go and like he and Wylan would vibe together, and then Wylan would just drop some random information about his father, and Percy would be like,
But Percy would go to war.
Percy would go to war. Percy would be like, okay, where's this man at? I'm gonna go unalive
Why
him.
have all of their
Incorrect.
ships sunk at once?
False. Percy would send Sally with Medusa's head.
There you go.
There we go.
Need some art.
Mm-hmm.
And Kaz would sell the statues. He'd think he'd keep Van Eyck for his personal study, though.
I think he would.
Okay, but we're still working on
Lena's
spoilers.
cane up against it.
Okay, so where did we decide Clarice goes?
Clarice is versus Nina.
Are we
Because-
sticking to characters just in the original Percy Jackson books, or can we venture out into...
I had been, but I'm open to venturing out.
I'm open.
Okay, so technically I haven't read the Heroes of Olympus series, but I have ideas.
You have ideas.
Jason paired with
Mhm.
Matthias.
That is fair.
Mm-hmm. The two white blonde boys.
The two duty-driven
Yeah.
lumps of muscle white blonde boys.
Good.
They also both have connections to wolves.
I didn't think of that, but you're right.
Rachel, I'm begging you to keep this in the podcast.
And-
This isn't about
and-
Percy Jackson anymore.
Can I say something terrible?
I have a feeling you're going to, no matter what I say.
I have a feeling I know what you're gonna say.
They're all so bullshit.
Spoilers for
No,
so many things.
I'm not okay with either of those.
I am also not okay.
And then this is also me being totally...
Wylan and Leo.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yep. That's
Both know how to blow
100%.
things up really well. Neither does it on purpose, ever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay,
but
so
I think
here's-
what we've just built is several friendships, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about matching them up.
So I think Jesper is still Percy, and Nina
Okay.
would be Clarice.
All right.
So we're saying these are our teams who would win and capture the flag.
Yeah. Who
Do
wins
the
and
pros
capture the
get
flag?
explained the rules, or are they just thrown into this situation?
I feel like either way they're gonna cheat, so it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
However,
There also aren't very many rules in Capture the Flag.
right.
No killing, no maiming, something.
There's a more I'm using this term loosely, supernatural abilities on the Percy Jackson side of things than
Yes.
on the Six of Crows side of things.
But the Percy Jackson side of things, just to play devil's advocate here, believes in a rule called no maiming.
Yes.
I think, okay, hear me out.
There
Hear me
would
out.
be deaths.
I think the only way the Percy Jackson side would win is if Kaz Brecker hit Annabeth and Percy went feral.
Yes, so we need okay. So here's what I think would happen. Could I have
right.
the list in the corner of the screen?
Yes, I will.
Thank
I
you.
will hold it. I will hold it in front of my face.
Thank
You
you.
don't need to see
Beautiful.
me.
Actually, I miss seeing your gorgeous face. But
There you
now
go.
I get both. So here's Inej and Annabeth both disappear within literal seconds to go find the flag. Neither of them successfully find it.
Accurate.
Okay.
Matthias and Jason make eye contact, pick each other out as the appropriate opponent. That's the word I was looking for.
These are the two most honor-driven people in the entire game.
Honor-driven, resolve, like straightforward fighting. Those are the two boys. So they immediately break into fighting. Unfortunately, Matthias is burned to a crisp. Nina and
What a way
Clarice
to go.
also approach each other. Nina immediately tries to make Clarice throw up, but Clarice has no internal organs and beats her up. Wylan and Leo are neither of them completely sure about what the heck is going on, and they don't really want to participate. They step aside and just sit and talk.
They have a good chat about explosives.
Jesper takes a shot at Percy. Percy's not a huge fan of that. Jesper ends up very wet.
Jesper ends up in a canal or
Jesper
river,
ends
depending
up
on the
in a
setting.
river. Yes. He's fine, but he's not participating anymore.
He has been disqualified.
It all comes down to Kaz and Nico.
Yes.
Yes.
Kaz and Nico are the ones that find the flags.
Yes.
Of course.
They don't fight each other because there's no purpose served by fighting each other. They both walk away to go find the flags.
And Nico wins because he can shadow walk or whatever.
Yeah, because he can shadow travel the way back.
And then Kaz gets so mad he tries to shoot Nico.
And just shoots a shadow.
Excellent.
Joke's on us, Kaz Brecker has been shadow traveling for decades, but he didn't know it. Just one step at a time.
Oh, I'm crying.
Listen, I think I nailed it.
Yes. Lydia, I want this fan fiction written.
We need this crossover.
Listen, I haven't even gotten to Gaius and Tulia yet, Maggie. What am I gonna do?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I have an important question that I need to ask, though.
Yes.
So we determined that Clarice wins against Nina.
Yes.
Does
I
before
am
Nina
picturing...
goes?
Oh, continue.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
This is Six of Crows Nina, not
Right.
Crooked Kingdom or
Later.
or later Nina.
Yeah, gotcha.
In which case she would be foiled with Nico.
Right.
She loses, but she looks good doing it.
Yes. My question was, does... How do I say this? Before Nina goes full heart render on the situation, does she try to flirt her way out of this situation? That's what I want to know.
Yes.
Is that a question? You've just asked me if Nina is Nina. Of course, this does not help with Clarice, who wouldn't know if someone was flirting with her if the world depended on it.
Yeah. Clarice is like, huh?
I feel like that's 98% of the campers at Camp Half-Blood, minus maybe the Aphrodite cabin.
I'd say...
Oh, okay. No, go ahead. Go ahead first.
50% of the campers have no idea if anyone is flirting with them. The other 50% are on hyper alert because they have been convinced by the Aphrodite cabin that everyone is flirting with them.
I thought you were going to say 50% has no clue and the other 50% are the ones flirting.
They're trying so hard.
You know, that would work too. I just went in another direction.
Nina versus Piper.
Oh.
I can't contribute to this one. I don't know Piper well enough.
See, here's the thing. Nina would flirt with her, and then Piper would start flirting back, and
I know.
and the fight would be over. Piper would win.
They end up on a
I
date
think-
somewhere, and everyone's like, "What happened to them?"
You forget about the flag.
Matthias and Jason are looking at each other like, "Where'd they go?"
We got ditched.
I guess we're boyfriends now.
Yeah.
This has been a very productive conversation.
This might just be a separate bonus episode. Like,
Yeah,
I think
just
we-
include this somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Except I think that the most foilable character to Kaz from the Percy Jackson universe is actually Luke.
Are you just saying that because they're evil, though?
No, I'm being genuine because Kaz isn't Kaz's line like I'm going to tear him down brick by brick.
You know, that's fair.
Luke literally says that he wants to tear Olympus down stone by stone.
True. I guess I picture
Kaz would beat Luke, though.
Yeah. Well,
Kaz would beat Luke.
Pre-book 5.
I don't know. I feel like Kaz against Kronos would be kind of an interesting matchup.
I think it would be interesting, but I don't think Kaz would win.
I didn't make any comment on that front. But I do think
Kaz is screwed, but it would still be interesting.
if there is one character who would have the audacity to fight time itself,
it is
Kaz
Brecker.
Brecker.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that part of the reason I have trouble matching Kaz and Luke up exactly is because we never really get inside Luke's head. So I associate Kaz with a lot of angst that, like, even though Luke is on a path for revenge in a lot of ways, he's also on a bit of an... For someone who wants revenge, he's also kind of an... like, I don't want to say an optimist, maybe an idealist. Just idealist is how I should have said that word. But just because he thinks that by doing this, he can actually, like, start something new, and as he put it, build something honest.
Yeah.
Whereas Kaz has no such lofty ambitions. Kaz...
He just wants to rip it apart.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I think
Kaz doesn't want to be what's his face? Not Vanek, the other one.
I should be able to tell you this, but I don't.
I'm not gonna feel bad for not knowing because I haven't finished Crooked Kingdom.
Who are you thinking of? Oh,
the other
Emerald one.
Yeah, him. He doesn't want to be the Pekka Rollins.
Yes, that's the guy.
He doesn't want to be the next Pekka Rollins. He just wants to get rid of Pekka Rollins, whereas Luke wants to be the next person in charge.
I would
That's
also say that whereas Luke is a villain who sees himself as a hero, Kaz is a villain who sees himself as a worse villain.
That's fair. My point still stands, though.
Which one?
They both want to tear things down brick by brick.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Brick by boring brick?
Brick. I can't. Brick by brick, stone by stone, piece by piece. There we go. Compromise.
I was making a Paramore reference, but no one lived through that era. I guess that's fine.
We're the same age, Maggie.
When all of my friends were learning Paramore songs, I was learning show tunes.
That's fair. I only know a handful. Of both, to be clear.
Who's next?
What were we talking about?
We were talking about Clarice.
Oh, yeah.
Have we said everything we need to say about Clarice?
I think so.
Okay. Do we have anything we want to say about Luke?
He sure there.
Can I say something?
He doesn't.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Well,
I was just going to say he really doesn't do a whole lot in this book. He's just kind of there to move the plot along sometimes.
Indeed.
I think it's telling that we get that snippet in their first conversation where Luke tries to convince Annabeth that Talia would have been on his side because he knows perfectly well that Talia may be in the equation again.
Yeah.
Ooh. I'm so excited to talk about Talia.
I'm so excited to listen to you guys talk about Talia.
The Titan's Curse might be my favorite out of all of the Percy Jackson books.
I mean, it's definitely a good one.
I go between that one and The Last Olympian.
Same.
I think the only thing I really miss with the Titan's Curse is that you don't really get Percy and Annabeth together on a quest.
Yeah.
Which to me is just like, oh, but that's the best thing.
We're missing the heart here.
Yes.
A little bit.
Except, so my favorite character is Nico. So we get Nico
Shocking.
introduced.
True.
Shut up, Maggie. And I really love Zoe.
I've never heard this about you before, Rachel.
I don't like either of you.
You love us.
I didn't say I didn't love you.
I was just kidding.
I have a type when it comes to the characters I like, okay?
Listen, you have great taste. Nico is a fabulous character, but also, what were you gonna say?
Nico's your favorite character. He gets introduced in the Titan's Curse.
Yeah, and I really love Zoe.
Yes.
And they're both in this book. Like, 3 of the 10 stickers I have on my computer are Nico and Zoe.
Mm-hmm.
Please don't ever do that in unison again.
Do what?
What did we do?
You both went at the same time, like same pitch, everything.
Maggie and I are just living the same life right at the moment.
Exactly.
Any other characters we have to talk about?
Not really. I don't feel inclined.
Chiron, partying with his cousins.
You know, Chiron should loosen up a little bit.
He really should, but maybe not to the level of his cousins.
I don't know about this.
Anyone got any other hot takes they want to share? Because I think that's how we wrapped up the Lightning Thief, right? We just kind of shared some hot takes.
Yeah.
Anyone got any Sea of Monsters hot takes?
I feel like I already said mine.
Yeah, I kind of already said mine too.
Well, then we're done. That's it.
Woo!
Woohoo!
Well, this has been quite the journey. And it is not 1 a.m. this time. So I'm feeling like we're pretty accomplished.
Yeah.
I agree.
All has gone well. Thank you again, Lydia, for being on the show with us.
Yeah,
it's been a real treat to chat. It's been a real treat. I tried to say talk and chat at the same time, okay? It's been a real treat to chat with you these last 2 episodes and to get some of your excellent insight on these books and these characters that we all know and love, and to go off complete tangents several times, but it's been a real joy. So thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you so much for having me. I was so glad to finally be able to share Percy Jackson opinions that have been stewing for 10 years.
Well,
maybe we need to do a hot takes on Percy Jackson with Lydia.
I think that's definitely fair. And I know, Maggie, we've talked about this, but I think we're going to do the Heroes of Olympus as a season eventually.
Eventually, yes.
I think we should invite Lydia back for that season. Just saying.
You could invite me back just to hear me quote the entire first page. And then I'll leave.
No, we want you to stay.
So I haven't read those books yet, which is something we've talked about. I know what happens in almost every book because, it's been so long since they came out, and spoilers. But I am very excited to read them for the first time, and I think I'm going to read them for the first time once we're done doing this reread of
Good.
Percy Jackson.
Good.
They hold a special place in my heart.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode, and we will see you next time.
Yes, indeed.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of I'm Not the Book Expert, but She Is. You can find us online at bookexpertpod.wordpress.com or follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at bookexpertpod. If you enjoy our show, please consider leaving us a review on our website or wherever you find your podcasts. We'll see you again soon.